Magnificent, a storybook for grownups by Becky Magnolia. Narrated also by Becky Magnolia. That's me. Dedicated to you with love. I lay in bed in the dark, eyes red from crying for an hour. I was alone, feeling wretched and trapped in the ruminations of my mind. Never had I felt so vile, so horrid. But then I heard it. It occurred to me that maybe this sound had not just begun at that moment, but had been going on for some time. I was so wrapped up in my drama that I had been oblivious to it. Too tired to find its source, I just lay there, blinking at the dark ceiling, listening to it circle around the room. That is, until it got louder, much louder. As it zipped past my face for the third time, I swatted blindly. I felt wings, a small body. I had hit it. The room went quiet, except for a single thud as it hit the floor. I looked to the tile below where I was sure this prehistoric-sized bug, or perhaps enraged hummingbird, must be. But over the edge of my bed, all I could see was a dull golden glow. I squinted my eyes to get a better look. Not bad aim for a human. There was a teeny giggle, and I watched as the glow rose above my bed. The hum resumed. Turn on your light, it said. What? I asked, troubled by the fact that an incandescent creature was barking out orders at me. Turn on your light, unless you want to have this conversation in the dark. The glow rose up and hovered over my blankets. Teeny flecks of golden light dripped from its body and fell to my quilt as if it was shedding shooting stars. I watched as each star gracefully plummeted downward, leaving glowing shards across the bed. Confused, I rose and turned on the overhead light. In the center of the room hovered a little person with papery wings, spindly arms and legs, a torso dressed in moss and feathers. It appeared to be female in form. I saw you crying, she said. I know you're having a rough time. The creature flew up so close to me that I could see the fine wrinkles around her eyes and mouth. A mound of white dreadlocks stood like a royal wedding cake atop her head. She blinked at me with her deep almond-shaped eyes. You are so magnificent. Do you know that? She smiled. I didn't answer. She landed delicately on my shoulder. I know it's hard to see when you're in such a difficult place. I still didn't respond. Don't worry. It's okay. You don't have to say anything. She placed her delicate hand on my cheek. For as teeny as her fingers were, they radiated a powerful warmth. It's hard to be human, she paused, but it's also, oh, so wonderful. Excited, she zipped from my shoulder. You guys have such cool human stuff, like those four-wheeled ridey things that roll on cement. Oh, and those footy things that keep you from stepping on thorns. And those gold salty sticks that are made from potatoes. French fries, I asked. Yes, French fries. She licked her lips. Humanness is good. Yeah? French fries are horrible for you, I frowned. And those humans that you talk about are destroying the earth. The four-wheeled cement riders, cars, are part of the cause. There's a lot of greedy, nasty, angry, miserable people out there. Lots of loneliness, too. Yes, loneliness, she said. Her touch seemed to calm me. And pain and heartbreak. It's heart-wrenching to see, but such a gift. Somehow, looking at this graceful creature made me feel as if my heart was thawing from a winter's sleep. For some reason, I felt like crying again. Seriously, she said, you have no idea how marvelous you are. I didn't answer. Really, I mean it. Your heart has such an incredible radiance. Yeah, I know you try to hide it under that elaborate poutiness of yours, but I know that glow. I see it. You are the essence of love. You are grace in action. I squinted and asked point blank, what are you? I'm Key. My real name is unpronounceable by human tongues, though I knew an armadillo that could pronounce it quite well, and a gypsy moth who could get all but the growling sound at the last consonant. But humans? Nope. I've never known a single one who could say it. I smiled slightly. So are we ready for our first lesson? She asked. I answered. I'll take that as a yes, she smiled. She drifted downward, sat her little tush on my knee, and crossed her legs. Sitting up straight, she began. Lesson 1. She gave a dramatic pause. You ready? I guess, I said. Okay, here it is. You are doing everything exactly right. Is that it? I asked. Is that it? This is like the doozy of all doozies, she said. It's just I find this hard to believe, I said with a frown. Lately, I'm doing everything wrong. Oh, I know you're skeptical, but trust me, you're right where you need to be. She grinned. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here at all. I stared at her, pretty sure I had completely gone insane. Yet something about this illusion seemed worthy of indulging. This rightness in life isn't something I can really explain in words, she said. It's just a knowing. Everything, I mean everything, happens just as it's supposed to. I can think of plenty of incidents in history, as well as my own life, that really shouldn't have happened, I said. I figured you wouldn't get this. I've got an exercise for you. Close your eyes. I shook my head with a definite no. She nudged me with her teeny elbow. Close them! How can you be shouting orders at me? I asked. You're not even real. I watched her golden glow move towards my face. She sidled up to my ear, and before I knew what was going on, there was a sharp pinch on my lobe. Did you just bite me? I said, grabbing at my ear. Uh-huh. I'm as real as that pain, she said. Listen, I'm here to give you the most delicious kind of love, right now. The cosmic kind. Don't turn it away. Yeah, well, your version of love is awfully fierce, I said, touching my earlobe and noting the droplets of blood that had transferred to my fingers. If you're going to give me such enlightened words, I would think you'd be more peaceful about it. I do what it takes, she said. Are you ready to close your eyes? Yes, fine. I closed my eyes. She began speaking with an overly mellow voice, sort of like a yoga teacher who took herself way too seriously. Picture the universe as a cherry tree, blooming wildly. See the little pink flowers blossoming all around. Inhale the scent of billions of perfect blooms. I started to laugh. Listen up, she said, betraying her calm tone. I opened one eye and spotted her looking at me with a fiendish grin. This was all a game to her. I see that eye open. Close it, she smirked. I closed my eye and she returned to her previous voice. Now, imagine that each of those flowers is being born into existence. Look at all of you growing so lovely. There you are, just being. You're not attached to the process of growing. You're just doing your thing. No anxiety, no worries. Is there a point to all this? I asked, peeking this time to make sure she wasn't headed at my ear. There's a point to everything, my dear, she continued. Cherry blossoms simply do what they are destined to do, turn into cherries. There's no how-to books on becoming a cherry, no motivational speeches on ripening, no graphs, no analytics. They just do. I was now listening intently. Can you imagine if a cherry got angry at itself for not ripening fast enough? A fruit with expectations. Now that'd be silly. Yet you humans have expectations for everything. You want life to happen according to your plans. And then, to top it off, you go around expecting everyone else to behave in ways that meet your criteria. In all your fuss, you forget the most important thing, who you are. A cherry blossom. We're all just fresh, sweet-smelling, peace-loving cherry blossoms, becoming sweeter and sweeter each day. And the greatest thing, we're all evolving, ripening into handsome cherries, whether we mull over it or not. A flower simply lets her nature take its course. The fruit ripens without effort. That's the wisdom of the flowers. She cocked her head and looked at me. You, my dear, in the midst of all your worries, all your shame and mopiness, are nothing but a sweet-smelling blossom, doing what you need to turn into a fruit, to ripen and grow. There's no wrongness in this process, just a doing, a being. For some reason, this creature's words were settling deep inside me. I kind of liked it. So do you get what I'm saying? All you have to do is do what you do. I thought for a second. What about the person who is self-destructive? I said. Like the person who harms themselves with excessive alcohol or with an obsessive need for control or by seeking abusive relationships or like just being perpetually negative. The fairy furrowed her brow. It's hard to watch, isn't it? It's difficult to watch people we love do things that are bad for them. But sometimes a person's best in the moment is being self-destructive. That's all they're capable of doing. And more so, even though it doesn't look like it to you, it's exactly what they need to grow. So you're saying it's okay for people to hurt themselves, I asked? It's never okay to bring harm to yourself or others, she said. I looked at her. Oh, except in the case of ear biting, I smiled. Oh, your ear is fine. Let's stay on topic, why don't we? She returned to her upright posture. When it comes to caring for people who inflict harm on themselves, sometimes the best and often only thing we can do is to simply give them our love, she explained. So what do? We love those people with so much fierceness and intensity. We remind them in every way that they are loved wildly, no matter what. We tell them, we're here loving you, always. She paused and looked me deep in the eyes. But yes, sadly, sometimes we need to go into the depths of darkness before we are ready to follow the light. I don't know if I like this, I said. I understand, but remember, the most important lessons we receive in this lifetime are birthed from the darkness. To interrupt others' journeys because their pain makes us uncomfortable can cause more damage. We must respect the process of others. Well, how do we know when to help then? I asked. With wisdom, we learn discernment, and we get better at the great skill of helping. Each of us is born of love, so we all have it in us. You give love by simply being you. The more you release the love bound up within you, the better you can love others. Tap into your true essence, and your love will spread endlessly with ease. You talk about this tapping into love thing, I said. What if someone just stopped trying? Like they went the other direction and just gave up? You mean you? She asked. What if you just gave up? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hurt myself, but I'm just so sick of trying. For my whole life, I've wanted to please people, to make them happy. I jump through hoops to get appreciation, yet it just ends badly. What if I say, I don't care anymore? What if I throw my hands in the air and just say, fuck it? She laughed. Ha! Fuck it, yes! I fucking love that word! Such fury, such ferocity. Fuck! Sometimes, lots of times actually, we put so much energy into trying that we forget to do. Have faith in the process. Whether you're bending over backwards trying to make the entire world happy or lying in bed staring at the ceiling, it doesn't matter. You're still beautiful in the eyes of the universe. You will ripen when it's time. Suffer if you need to. Do your happy dance if that's what you want. You want to be depressed and dramatic? Then do that. Don't fight where you are. So it's okay to indulge those feelings? Just acknowledge it. Let the process be. All those thoughts are just clouds. They are big puffy poofs that will eventually dissolve. Of course, if you feed your thoughts with more thoughts, you will cause a cloud to grow. Feed a cloud and it becomes a thunderhead. She looked at me. Heavy thoughts will not only create a storm, but can entrap you in the thicket of your own mind, she said. The only way out of your little mind thicket is to relax the vines. I nodded. I've got a good example, she said. You know those little woven pulley things that human kids get at parties? Chinese finger traps? Yeah, that! If you try to pull your fingers out, what happens? You get locked in tighter, I answered. Uh-huh. Same principle. Your effort to break free is actually your only captor. When you relax, your fingers slide right out. Relax your effort, and you're free. When you hang out with your self-hatred and engage in negative behaviors or shame yourself for not doing what you think you're supposed to do, it actually quadruples your pain. You're picking at the scab. What starts out as just a cute little paper cut becomes a pus-filled sore. And you're the reason it's now infected. You do it to yourself. I've been doing a lot of scab picking lately, I said. Right, you have. But don't get mad at yourself for picking scabs. Most of you humans overthink. I used to do it too. So what if you picked a scab? So what if you dug yourself deeper? No biggie. It's part of the journey. Embrace your imperfection. When a person is ready, they will let go of their drama. It's a natural law, she said. All rivers eventually meet the sea. The blossom turns to fruit. So we don't make a big deal about our mistakes. We don't dramatize our drama. We just do our best and move forward when we're ready. So are you saying it's okay to sit around and be self-indulgent? If you need to. But if you're following the path, you won't stay there too long. You can't, even if you want to. Once you've been educated in the wisdom of the flowers, negative self-talk won't hang around. Internalize my lessons and you'll find yourself passionate to grow. Your excitement and fascination with your human journey will propel you outward. Follow the passion of knowing who you are, and you will shed light into the world. She looked at me with a sweetness. You're tired, aren't you? I nodded. Okay, school is out for tonight. You will sleep well. We'll talk in the morning. I watched her golden glow float upward and settle in the hanging plant that hung above my head. Sleep tight, I heard her fairy voice say. Don't let the bed bugs bite. I reflexively echoed back. See you in the morning light. My mom had said that to me every night when I was small. I pulled my covers up to my chin and settled in with a warm smile. The next morning I awoke to the delightful call of 2 wrens in the tree outside my window. They had made a nest 2 weeks before, and they were eagerly catching insects for their brand new brood. I should get up, I heard myself think. But instead, I simply smiled and rolled over. From where I lay, my quilt outstretched like a farm field, a patchwork of colorful crops reaching to the outskirts of my bed. My mom had made this quilt for me. I closed my eyes and smiled with thoughts of her again. Directly in front of me was a squiggle of magenta yarn, one tie among many, holding the blanket together. I chuckled, thinking about how as a kid I used to pretend that those ties were happy worms emerging from their dens. Good morning, sunshine, I heard from overhead. Buzzing into view was the little philosophic fairy. I had almost forgotten. I sat up and blinked my eyes. How'd you sleep? Good, I said, stretching. Told ya. The fairy zipped out the door. I heard her buzz down the hallway. Where are you going? I called to her. I could hear her little voice in the distance as she replied. Kitchen! I'm ready when you are, she called. School's in session. I stretched and stood and then opened the blinds. Still in my pajamas, I wandered down the hall towards the kitchen. The fairy was already there, pushing with all her might on the button of my electric kettle. When it finally clicked, she gave me a proud smile. You need flowers, she said, to help you with your healing work. And she lifted a tea bag like it was a sandbag. Jasmine is the flower of tranquility. I selected a cinnamon roll from the bakery box I had left on the counter the day before and put it on a plate. I really shouldn't be eating these, I thought, remembering the calorie count I'd read on the package in the store. Reading my mind, Key said, You eat how you're moved to eat. When the time for fruit and vegetables comes, your body will ask for it. Right now, you need sugar! Her eyes got wide as she followed me and my cinnamon roll from the counter to the table. I grabbed a mug and went to the teapot and poured, watching the plume of steam wandering towards the ceiling. Good, she said. I like how you do that. What? I asked, dropping the bag in the mug. Observe the tea. Magic is in the moments. You're already ahead of me. Lesson number 2 has begun. Fall in love with the moment, she said. Let it all be as it is. Hot, bobbling, jasmine-y goodness. I closed my eyes and felt a welling of happiness in my chest. Perfect to a T, she said. I kept my eyes closed. Get it? Tea, she said, trying to get my attention. I chuckled. Yeah, I get it. See how grand the moment feels when you're not steeped in thought? Is that supposed to be a tea pun too? I said. Yep, I'm on a roll, she giggled. On a roll, she repeated. Get it? Get it? She obviously wanted me to look. I turned to find Key sitting on the cinnamon roll, her legs deep in frosting. If you ask me, you should be eating these every day. They're good for the soul. I watched her rub the frosting up and down her legs. Oh, and they seem very good for the skin, too. Look how shiny my legs are now. She kicked her legs and pointed her toes. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, take a moment. Step back from your noisy human mind and observe the details of whatever is around you. Let yourself become the sensations. Let the sound course beneath your skin. Breathe in the light. Do it as often as you want. Do it when you're thinking too much. Do it when you're tired. Do it when you're happy. Do it when you're sad. Bring yourself home to where you belong. The more you practice returning to the moment, the easier over time it will be to untie those mental vines. And better yet, the more skilled you get at unwinding, the easier life will be. Your fears will subside more quickly. She was now fully relaxed in the pastry, like it was her personal beanbag chair. She giggled as she licked frosting from her arms. Lesson number 3, she began. Don't take life too seriously. Embrace the whimsy. Somehow her fairy logic was starting to make sense. The key to happiness is living lightly. Let it flow. Don't get stuck on anything. Oh, wait, except maybe cinnamon rolls. You're ridiculous, I said as I handed her a small piece of wet paper towel. Indeed I am. I wouldn't have it any other way. We fairies, we have a great privilege. We can fly. So when things get too intense, we can rise up over it all and get a different perspective. Up high, you can see that all those dramas that we get wrapped up in are really quite small. They're transitory. It may feel intense at the time, but from a higher vantage point, nothing is so deeply important. Even the big stuff isn't so big. It's just our noisy minds telling us to believe otherwise. Life is just flow. It's easy to forget that. But what about all the suffering, I asked? What about all the human nastiness? How can we ignore that? Floating above things doesn't mean we minimize human pain. Not in the least. But instead, it allows us to step back and see the grander perspective. Be human. Trudge through the muck of human existence if you need to, but also know that you are free at any time to fly above it and lovingly look around. She paused, deep in thought, and then spoke. This life, this world, all of it is exquisite. Absolutely beautiful. All of it. Why do you look sad? I asked, detecting a shift in her energy. Not sad, just overtaken by the beauty. When you feel it, I mean really feel it, you also become it. Existence is all things, magnificence and darkness, grief and freedom, aloneness and connection, in duality human struggle. Above it all is indescribable light. So what's your role in all of this grandness? I asked. Good question. I'm just here to share what I've learned. I've been around a long time, she giggled. How old are you? 873,241 moons. But we're on a waxing crescent right now, so I'd add another 0.25. But who's counting? Whoa, I said. Oh yeah, and I'm just a youngin'. She looked at me and cocked her head. You know, you don't seem quite so miserable today. I mean, there's still this poop-colored glow around you. She gestured with her arms as if drawing out my aura in the air. It's that same shade as armadillo poo. You know, after they've indulged in palm berries. But, she squinted, I also see these sparks of gold shooting out of your head. It's very flattering. My aura? I asked. No, just colored lighty things. Humans call them auras, I explained. I have a friend, Mark, who can see them. I know what auras are, she said with a snip. These are just colored lighty things. She looked at me quite seriously. You humans find great importance in names and labels. Everything has an identity. You use words like spirituality, God, divinity, and aura, but these words are weighted with so many lifetimes of human stories. Each word is thick, layered in experience, detached from its true essence. Words can point us in the direction of true nature, but they can't bring us there. So why do you even bother telling me these things? I asked. It's not what I'm saying, as much as the space between the words. It's the gesture, the cadence, the breath we share, the energy between us. It's all part of the transmission. She paused and thought. In the end, everything I tell you is a lie. Each word that falls out of my mouth is a mask for something much more potent. Words are clumsy, but they're what we've got. Of course, when you wrap your words in juicy, love-alific, vibrational sunshine, all shortcomings disappear. She beat her wings and began to rise while wiping her hands together vigorously. Bits of dried frosting fell onto the floor like tired snowflakes. I looked up at her and said, Key, there's something about being with you that makes me feel good, like more settled than I have been in a really long time. I appreciate this so much. She closed her eyes contentedly and nodded. I kept talking. I just don't understand why you are doing all this for me. I don't feel worthy of your love. She floated down to my face so close that I could detect the honeysuckle fragrance on her breath. Oh, you silly one. You do love the internal drama, don't you? Those are more mental knots that you've got going there. I'm here because I love you. I am here to point you towards the truth that you had forgotten so long ago. I'm here to show you that you are perfect. You are loved, absolutely. I mean, look at you in all this irresistible magnificence right in front of me. We're here together, you and I, like this, because we're supposed to be. It's the wonderful isness of being. You and I are doing this dance just as we're meant to. She flew down to the plate on the table and grabbed another fistful of pastry and shoved it in her mouth. I take that back. I'm here just for the cinnamon rolls. I fucking love these things. She flew to my forehead and gave it a kiss, leaving a teeny patch of stickiness on my skin. Now, my friend, you've got important moping to do today. A little self-degradation, doused in a hefty dose of gloom. I'm going to leave you be. We'll have a chat in the evening. Key went to the windowsill and tried to lift it, making teeny squawks as she strained to muscle it open. Little help here, she grunted. Instead, I walked to the front door and opened it. This will probably be easier, I said. But Key, I don't want you to leave. I feel like I'm really making headway here. I know. I understand. However, there's an ongoing quarrel between the bumblebees in your neighbor's backyard. They need me to mediate. Currently, the fate of the North End Bumblebee Collective is more important than your needs. Besides, I hear there might be some orange blossom honey in it for me. Okay, I said, trying to not appear dejected. Go do your day like you do so well. See ya, sweetie, she said, and I watched her zip through the doorway, past my front porch, and towards the branches of a giant magnolia tree until her light was out of view. I stepped into the kitchen to find a lingering trail of her glistening fairy droplets falling gently to the floor. Now what? I said to the stack of dishes in front of me. Without Key, the house felt exceptionally quiet. I walked to the sink and filled it with warm water and soap. As I scrubbed, the pans knocked together. Teeny soap bubbles stuck to my arm, leaving me with a tingly, tickling sensation as they popped one by one. Fall in love with the moment. I heard Key in my mind say. I watched my hand as it grasped the warm rag. I listened to the sound of water swooshing about in my big old soup pot. I felt it. I heard it. I breathed it. I knew how to do this. But within minutes, my thoughts slipped. I was back to doubt and self-criticism. And no matter how much swooshing I did with that rag, no matter how aware I was of the bubbles, agitation was becoming the ruling feeling. My brow felt tied now by the knots of my noisy mind. I sighed, finished the dishes, wiped down the counters, and then swept the floor. But I was back to the old me. Everything I did felt heavy and pointless. As I moved to the living room to watch some mindless TV, I heard an unfamiliar voice.
Sucks, don't it?
I looked around but couldn't find the source.
I know. You're missing Key, aren't you?
Said a gruff male voice, small and rough. I looked again.
Down here,
he said. In the middle of the living room, I spotted a small creature, bumpy and green, waddling towards me.
Codependency's a bitch.
Huh? I said. What are you?
I'm a who, not a what. The name is Frank.
This just keeps getting weirder and weirder, I muttered.
I'm here to fill in, to help you out when Key isn't around. I'm a very helpful guy. You'll love me. Most people do. Especially the ladies. I see shit most people don't. I'm honest where others aren't.
Well, all right then. At this point, I was open to anything. He toddled right up to my feet, dripping greasy residue on my bare toes.
Let's cut to the chase. I'm seeing some problems with you. Relationship stuff. Deep, dark, ugly stuff. You haven't been lucky in love, or even your friendships for that matter. When you were married, you were always tending to your partner's needs, like compulsively, and fixing everyone's emotions. You're like the hero friend who tries to save the day, the good guy, who regardless of your efforts somehow always ends up alone. You thought you were freeing yourself from loneliness by being an emotional mender. And now you've got this fairy lady who's gonna save the day? You think she's gonna free you from your misery? Don't delude yourself. You are now building a nice codependent relationship with her. Codependency with a fairy. Now that's fucked up, man. Key will tell you stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's great and all. Nice gal, really. She's great. But if you want to hear my opinion, don't trust her. Nope. All that love and sunshine and shit, it makes you feel good at first. But it's all make-believe.
He paused and looked at me with his sunken eyes.
She tells you she loves you, don't she?
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, because I can tell you're a great person. I'm really impressed by you. But...
He sighed as if he was reluctant to share this information with me.
Do you have any idea how many humans, not to mention house cats, turtles, and armadillos, I've heard Key say, I love you too. Fairies are sweet and stuff, but honestly, they are all a bunch of spiritual whores. Oh, you're so marvelous, he said, mocking her high-pitched voice. Oh, you're so amazing. She uses that sappy peace and love stuff as a commodity.
But why would she do that? I asked.
She's seeking attention, hungry like you. She feeds off of your misery, your neediness. Fairies love that shit.
She seemed genuine. I mean, not that I've dealt with a lot of fairies before.
Yeah, wait till you've known as many fairies as I have. Look, I get it. You're feeling vulnerable. You're learning the harsh truths about life. People lie, people cheat. Fairies make you feel good, and then they screw you like everyone else.
I noticed my body tightened as he talked.
Do you think you're actually deserving of her affections? She's friggin' magical, and you're just, well, kind of a messed up human. You don't have the capacity to understand the depth of her knowledge. But don't worry. Most of what she teaches is just a bunch of convoluted BS anyway.
He paused, then his eyes lit up as he spoke.
Wait a second. I bet you bought that crap about cherry blossoms. She gives everyone that story. Made you feel good, didn't it? But she didn't mention anything about what happens once the cherry ripens.
What happens? I asked, still dumbfounded.
Someone plucks it from the tree, puts it in their filthy mouth, mashes it in their teeth, and swallows it. And it ends up where? In a pile of shit. And that's the good outcome. Sometimes a cherry gets ignored. It stays on that tree branch alone to shrivel up and die.
He let the word die linger on his lips.
She's not telling you the whole story. Life is dark and sad, and in the end, we all end up withered, alone, and dead.
I felt like I was being punched in the stomach over and over.
Look, I like you. I really do.
The repulsive green mass continued.
That's why I say this stuff. Really, you need this info now, because I tell you, being single is no piece of cake. You're on your own. And let me tell you, there's no good men or women out there. It's a wasteland of dickheads and Klingons. You need to be wise to their bullshit. No one is trustworthy these days. Think about it. You put your trust in people, and they disappoint you over and over. And you know why? Because people suck.
As much as I didn't want to buy into his story, this nasty imp was speaking the same exact words I had been hearing for most of my life. You're a failure. Don't trust anyone. Don't get too close. And yet, as unbearable as his words were, there was something about them that felt almost safe, familiar. It was enticing food for this broken soul. Part of me was eating up his negativity like one seeks sugar when they really need a hearty meal. The only difference now was that I knew what was going on. The vines of my mind were wrapping up tight. I was becoming entrapped in their poison knots.
But hey, what do I know? I'm just a little guy who crawled through your dryer vent. Just be on guard. So many people are out there to fuck you over. Don't buy all that magic crap about destiny and oneness. We're in this 100% alone. Do it for you. Look, I know it's rough to hear, but I tell you this because I care.
I walked into the living room and sat myself on the couch, trying to not get overwhelmed. I was now balancing his words with Key's, but the contradiction between them was too much to bear. It was as if his words were entering my ear canal and embedding themselves into my brain.
I know this news is rough, but it's reality, man. Don't worry, though. You're fine. Just focus. Get your shit together, and you'll be fine.
As much as I wanted to resist everything he had to say, he was right about one thing. There was no denying it. I had to stop moping. Even Key would agree with that, I think. I'm going to get some work done, I said to the creature.
Great. I'll just settle in here, he said, opening my garbage can.
He eyed the rim of the can as if gauging its distance, and then with a single leap, the toad-sized creature plopped right in, leaving a small puddle of oily residue on my tile floor.
Woohoo! Look at the fuzz on this cottage cheese, he said,
his voice echoing from within, only moments later to return with a handful of last week's fettuccine Alfredo. While the green man occupied himself with my kitchen waste, I was determined to try to make my life normal. So I set the plan for that afternoon to create a resume and start searching for jobs. I set up my laptop at the kitchen table and smiled. It felt good to be doing something concrete that didn't involve imaginary friends. I pulled out my most current resume. The date on the top said March 30th, 1998. It had been decades since I'd updated it. When I was married, I didn't work. I didn't have to. But now it looked, as Frank had said, like I needed to get my shit together. I read the resume over 2 times and frowned. My education and my work experience were so far behind the curve. I added a few volunteer jobs from when the kids were in elementary school and then stopped and stared at the blinking cursor as it waited patiently for my next line. Pathetic, Frank belched. I looked back to the garbage can. He was still inside, but his words echoed from within. Useless, empty, hopeless. What did you just say?
You heard me. I might add helpless, needy, and loner to the list.
I didn't like where this was going. I tried to recall Key's words. You're right where you need to be. But this couldn't possibly be the case right now. How could I be just where I need to be with an abusive imp stealing my calm? Reminding myself that I was getting trapped in the thicket of my mind again, I tried to distract myself by going to the cupboard to grab a bag of jelly beans. I took a handful. Instantly, my own negativity took hold. Gluttonous, fat, needy, unlovable, I thought to myself.
Excellent word choice. You're good at this, babe,
Frank answered as he licked coffee grounds from his palm. I stood, carried the bag of jelly beans into my bedroom, shut the door, lay on my bed, and let my mind go. I was chronically codependent. At this point, I didn't need Frank in the room with me. My brain was already on fire, playing out ancient stories about who I always believed I was. Look at you, I thought. You fucked up a perfectly good marriage because you couldn't be satisfied. You have failed at love and always will. You're a wreck. Pathetic. Unlovable. I curled in on myself and began to sob, wishing the noise inside my mind would stop. Behind my sobs, I heard a knock on the door.
Hey, come on, cheer up. It's not so bad.
I could hear Frank's rough voice behind the door.
Let me in. Come on, I can help.
I ignored his words and continued to let the self-hatred flow. I watched as I indulged the parade of stinging thoughts, each one marching by, dragging me deeper and deeper into despair. After what seemed like hours, I noticed the sun was setting outside. My crying had calmed, and I was left, staring detached at the end table beside my bed. There was another knock on the door, and I pulled the pillow over my head. "Leave me the fuck alone," I called. I knew now that Frank was to blame for all this. I had been doing so well, and then he came along and placed all this fire in my head. "It's not Frank," I heard a high-pitched female voice say. "It's Key. Will you let me in?" "No, absolutely not. I am done with this insanity. I am no longer feeding these illusions." "Things got rough for you today. I knew they would," she said through the door. "Then why the hell did you leave?" "It was necessary for your story," she answered. "What story? Like this is part of some fucking book?" "Not some fucking book. Your fucking book. This is your story. You're writing it as we speak. This is all happening with purpose. Now, will you open this door for me, please?" I rose from the bed and opened the door. Key flew in and did a full circle around the room until she landed at the end of the bed. I felt my body settle as I watched her golden form illuminate my room. Instantly, all the negative things Frank had said about her dissolved away. But just as I felt my first smile of the evening, I watched as the filthy imp waddled in, grabbed my quilt with his grubby fists, and hoisted himself onto the bed right beside Key. "Oh, no, you don't," I cried. "There is no way you're getting anywhere near me." I pointed at him as if he was the devil himself. Ignoring me, he reached his finger into his right nostril and casually began to explore. "He's the reason I'm so messed up, Key. He's the one who fucked me up." Key didn't answer, but simply smiled, playfully watching her legs as she stretched them out and wiggled her toes. "Are you not getting this? This narcissistic demon blob is out to get me." Frank found a gem in his nose and proceeded to admire it and then wiped it on my mother's quilt. What the Key? Aren't you going to do something about this?" "I am doing something." She paused, blinked those teeny eyes at me, sat herself up a little straighter and said, "Lesson 4. Darkness will guide you to the light." "Are you going to try to tell me that all this pain is going to somehow help me?" "Absolutely. And Frank here is your greatest teacher. You hate him as you hate yourself. He is nothing more than an extension of your own fear." "Uh-huh," Frank grinned, revealing his decaying teeth. "I'm your doubt and your shame. I'm your ugliness, too." "Then I've got a great idea," I said, looking at them both. "If he's my negativity, I want him gone. I want him to get up from the place where he's soiling my bed and leave forever. Key shook her head. For some humans, a one-day imp ousting works. But I don't think that's going to work for you. It's not always that easy, she said. You like your misery a little too much. Key rose up from the bed and flew to my nightstand, where I had left the bag of candy. She wiggled her way inside and emerged victorious, cradling a red jelly bean. She settled back down beside Frank. I like your thinking, he said, offering her a loud belch. Good one, Key chuckled, then looked at me. We need a knife. Great, I said. To stab the imp? No, she said firmly, not to stab the imp. I have a higher purpose. Besides, don't you know? Stabbed imps spawn thousands of teeny baby imps. Yup, Frank said. When you mask your fear, it finds its way back. It creeps up as disease, as cruelty, as hate and anger. The human world is plagued with people who keep Frank and his kin by their side. It's the root of all sickness, all war, all abuse, and all loneliness. The only way to access love is by accepting your truth, by embracing who you are. But understand me, facing it doesn't mean you have to wallow in old pain. Just observe it, let it flow, and then let it go. Frank looked at me. Currently, my friend, you are a hungry beast like me. We seek salvation in fear and doubt. But I have something to tell you. The path you are currently on will not bring you true happiness. You will spend your life just trying to fill the hole, but that hole is bottomless. Not even Key, who is quite a powerful lady, can fulfill that need. So what do? I looked to Key. You listen, she said with a quiet smile. To who? Not to a who, but a what. You listen to the stillness. You listen to the way the crickets call to each other at dawn. You listen to the way a candle flickers in response to the silent air. You listen to the smile of your children as they tell you about their escapades. You listen. But how will that fill the void? In the end, there is no void, my friend. Not in you, not in anybody. It's your own creation. When you listen, the stillness will explain. What about the hunger that Frank talked about? Desire is the burden that humanity carries. It's your greatest flaw, and yet also the greatest beauty in being human. She flew up and placed her hand on the center of my chest. Little do you know, everything you seek is right here. Let desire come. Let desire go. Your truth shines boldly within. She smiled. I looked down at Frank on the bed, but he was no longer himself, only a ghost of his former being. I could make out vaguely that he was lying on his back, with his hands on his belly, and see a contented smile on his face. He was glowing, the color of a firefly, on a summer's evening. What's happening to him? I asked. He's leaving. You no longer need him. Frank waved goodbye, and I watched as this creature, this beast that brought so much trouble to my life, dissipated into waves of tired light. You did that, you know, all on your own. She smiled at me. I told you you were magnificent. She settled on the bed again, beside the remaining slice of jelly bean, leaned back, and returned to admiring her toes. The sky outside my window was now soft with indigo light. The branches of my favorite magnolia tree reached out in leafy silhouettes, framing the first evening star. Fall in love with the moment, I heard within myself. I closed my eyes and felt a radiance course through my body, arising as safety and peace, as if Key's energy had now become my own. I hummed. I feel like lying down now, I said. Go right ahead, her voice answered calmly. As I settled on my back, it felt as if joy itself was moving through me in waves, up my spine, down my arms and legs, around my toes, through my fingers, until my whole body felt alive with warmth and beauty. A delicate tear came to my eye, not in sadness, but in utter joy. Above it all, I saw my life, my parents, my brothers, my friends, my kids, everyone my life had ever touched. And I felt their essence flowing in and out of my own in an ocean of golden waves. Holding bliss like a cloak around me, I now allowed a new face to emerge. Fear. Detached from her past potency, I let her float below me. I scanned her, I observed her, and I loved her, giving her the tenderness of a mother to a child. I saw her as she was, an ancient tool, designed to protect me from pain. And as I breathed, I felt it. All my hunger, my desire, my anger, my grief, my selfishness, my shame dissolved away. The thicket of the thorns was gone. I opened my eyes and blinked. The room was not dark as I'd expected, but filled with a warm glow. I looked around. My skin, my entire being was filling the bed with pulsing rays of gold. I sat up, excited to share the news with Key, but when I looked to the spot on my bed where she had sat, she was no longer there. But I didn't panic, nor did I search the room. I didn't need to. I simply looked at that remaining slice of jelly bean and smiled with indescribable peace. For the first time, I didn't feel empty. There was no void, just love, absolute love.